Hey everyone, and welcome to the Jedi Jans podcast. This is really exciting. This is my first episode. Just really want to talk about Star Wars. So I've been thinking about doing this for a while now. Finally got some of the equipment together to do so, and I'm really looking forward to it. Before we get started, I just wanted to say that I'm just here to talk about Star Wars, just to give my opinions on things. And I really want to hear from you guys because, I'd really like to hear what you guys think as well. So if you are interested, please stick around. If you do like the video at the end, or if you like the podcast at the end, please feel free to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. But, I really would like this to be an inclusive thing. So if you guys have anything you want to say in the comments, please do so. If you have any ideas for future episodes, please put those in the comments as well. Alright, well, let's go ahead and get started. So what I wanted to do in this first episode was I wanted to go over my rankings of the Star Wars movies, going from least favorite to obviously my favorite. But the first thing I want to say is that it was really hard to do this because Star Wars movies, I always tell people that I equate them to my children. I love them all equally for different reasons, but this is just a circumstance where, if my life depended on it and I had to rate them, this is how they would go. So starting at the bottom, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. When I was a kid, back in 1999, I believe I was, I'm doing some math. I was 8 years old, and, I was really excited for it because my dad had really just started showing me the original trilogy. So I had known what was going on. And of course, a couple years before that, they re-released at least episode 4 was re-released in the movie theater. So he took me to go see that, and I thought that was just the coolest thing. So I was a little confused when episode 1 came out because I honestly thought that it was the sequel to episode 4. And I was like, so is this take... And then my dad was trying to explain to me. He's like, no, I think this takes place before episode 4. So I was like, okay, well, this started making sense then. But, so I remember seeing it as a kid, and I absolutely loved it. Like, I wanted to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. I wanted a master like Qui-Gon. I had fantasies of fighting Darth Maul. It was just... I thought it was really cool. And Jar Jar didn't bother me when I was a kid, and... it's just, as I've grown up and as I've, just come to see the movies through a more critical lens, it's still an enjoyable movie to watch. I still enjoy watching it, but, when I sit down and I think to myself, okay, well, what Star Wars movie do I want to watch? Episode 1 usually isn't the one that pops in my head right away, like, oh yeah, I just want to watch episode 1. The one reason I would want to watch episode 1 is for the fight scene at the end, because I just think that that's one of the best lightsaber fights. Obviously, in all of Star Wars, you get a double-bladed lightsaber. Nobody had ever seen that before until that point. So that was just really cool. But yeah, episode 1 definitely is at the bottom. Moving on, episode 2. Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, would be the next one up on the list. So, episode 2 had so many things in it that I absolutely loved. Like, I loved the clone attack. I loved the side story with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Jango Fett. And I loved all that. The thing that sank the movie for me was the love story. Don't get me wrong, I am a sucker for a good love story. But, I don't know, it just... something about it was just so cheesy, and it was just hard to get past. Like I understand why a lot of the actors said about George's writing, like they said you can type this stuff, but you can't say it. Just some of the dialogue between Anakin and Padme was just like, ugh. Really don't know how else to describe it. But yeah, episode 2, just had... There were so many other things about it that I really loved. So the clone attack at the end, I thought that was amazing. The whole arena full of Jedi was awesome. But again, you think back on it, and you're picking a Star Wars movie to watch. Episode 2 is not one of the ones that pops up in my head. So episode 2. The next one moving up the list is Solo: A Star Wars Story. Now, I really enjoyed this movie. Solo was a lot of fun to watch. But again, it's just kind of like, it's a simple story. It's, simple characters. Han Solo, I knew he wasn't going to die, so, there's no real danger for him, at least. But with that being said, I really, really like the character of Kira. I really liked Dryden Voss as a villain. I thought that was very interesting. The Maul reveal at the end was a lot of fun. I loved Woody Harrelson as Tobias Beckett. That was great. And Chewie was great in that movie. Like, I absolutely loved Chewie. But again, like, I enjoyed the movie. It's just not one of the ones that when I'm thinking of Star Wars, I just want to pop in. Like, so the way that I ranked this list a lot was, I'm a huge sucker for the Force and lightsabers. And if you're lacking in that, I'm probably not going to want to put it back in. With one exception to that, which is The Mandalorian, which came out. I absolutely love that show, and I watch it over and over and over again. But I did not put that in the list because it is not technically a movie, so we're focusing just on movies for now. Alright, so Solo. Moving up from Solo, we have Rogue One. I know a lot of people have Rogue One ranked really, really high. Again, I really like the movie, but just not enough. It's not enough lightsabers. I needed more. I just... the Vader scene at the end was freaking awesome. If I could have had a whole movie of Vader just hacking people like that, like, you give me a story of him hunting down the people who stole the plans to the Death Star, that would have been amazing. But, like I said, I enjoyed the movie for what it was. I liked the character of Jyn Erso. I liked the character of Cassian Andor, K2SO, one of my favorite droids. So, Rogue One did a lot of stuff right. Just there again, not on the top of my list. Alright, moving up from Rogue One. Episode 8, The Last Jedi. This is literally the most divisive movie I feel that's ever been made. Maybe close to The Rise of Skywalker at this point, but The Last Jedi, really, really enjoyed for a couple reasons. One of them, obviously, was Adam Driver as Kylo Ren. He's just been not just my favorite character throughout the sequel trilogy, but he's been one of my favorite characters in Star Wars, period. The way that he plays such a conflicted person is just absolutely amazing, and you could really see it just not just through his dialogue, but through his face, through his the expressions on his face, his mannerisms as an actor. Oh, just Adam Driver completely took the sequel trilogy for me. So that was really the one reason that Episode 8 really stuck out for me. Apart from that, I get why a lot of people don't like the movie. There are some times that it doesn't feel like a Star Wars movie. Like, there were some times that it literally, I'm watching it and I'm thinking, I feel like that would have happened in Star Trek. Or that would have happened in, like a Battlestar Galactica or something like that. And, it just... There's certain rules in the Star Wars universe, and nobody knows them better than George Lucas. So, I mean, that's just the thing. But, we, unfortunately, George isn't really that... Well, he definitely wasn't involved in this movie that much, but, my one hope is that George can somehow get back in as, just part of the creative team and just give his ideas again. So Episode 8 is pretty much smack dab in the middle of my list. Along with the next one, moving up, is Episode 7. Episode 7 was a really, really fun movie. It was fun to watch. It was just Episodes 4, 5, and 6 over again with different characters. Pretty much the same archetypes of characters, but pretty much the same characters. Just different faces. So, again, great movie. The rewatchability on that for me is pretty high. It's one of the movies I go back to when I want to do rewatches. So, Force Awakens, there's not really much bad to say about it, but there's not too much, there's nothing that truly blew me away in that movie. It's just, it's just a fun movie to watch. Alright, so then moving up from episode 7, episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. I really liked how JJ was able to take what he was able to work with, and he made it work as best he could. It's just, he set something up in The Force Awakens. Ryan took it in a completely different direction. Rian Johnson, that is, took it in a completely different direction than what I think JJ wanted it to go. So right there shows you the problem with the sequel trilogy. There was just no communication on the part of the storytellers. There was no overarching story. George had an overarching story. He knew where the story wanted to go. There were things that changed along the way, but he had an overarching idea of where the story should go. And that was something that was really missing, and you can see that when you watch the movies back to back to back. But episode 9 has some great visuals. Introducing light speed skipping, I thought that was really, really cool. I love the fact that they explained that it can really damage a starship if you do it too much. I really want to say that my biggest nitpick with the Rise of Skywalker was bringing Emperor Palpatine back. As much as I love Ian McDiarmid as Darth Sidious, it's just it just felt hollow watching the movie. Like, I almost would have rather Snoke come back. Like, that would have been perfect. Like, Snoke died on the Supremacy in Episode 8, and he was able to transfer his essence into a clone body on Exegol. It still would have made sense, and you still would have had your main villain, and that could have been one of Kylo's last lessons from Snoke was, I have the power to prolong life through this power of essence transfer. I just think that having Snoke there would have completed the trilogy even better than just bringing Palpatine back. If there would have been clues about Palpatine coming back since The Force Awakens, I could have seen it, but there really wasn't anything. So that was probably the one thing that brought the movie down for me the most. Alright, but moving on from Episode 9 and the sequel trilogy now, we're getting into my top 4. So moving on to the next one, we have Episode 4, A New Hope. The original, the one that started it all. I remember when my dad showed me this, and I had no idea what Star Wars was, and I remember watching it, and I was just, wow. Like, special effects that looked so real, that were done back in 1977. That was just absolutely amazing to me. So, I'm watching this movie, and, you've got Luke Skywalker as, like, the ultimate role model for kids. Well, maybe not necessarily role model, but you relate to him. Like, everybody has, at one point, felt like, I need to go out. I need to do something different. I need to see the world, basically. In his case, see the galaxy. And, I really connected with that. And then, you meet the characters along the way. Like, you meet Han, you meet Chewie, you meet Obi-Wan, you meet Princess Leia. The Episode 4 is close to being a perfect movie, I would say. And then we move on to the next one, Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. And George just puts it at a whole new level. Now, granted, George didn't direct this one, but, he still had his hand in it. Empire Strikes Back is just one of my favorite movies all time, not just, one of my favorite Star Wars movies. Empire just took a world that we saw in the first movie and just expanded it so much. We got to see, we got to see Hoth, we got to see Cloud City, we flew through an asteroid field, we saw the swamps of Dagobah, Luke training and learning more about the Force, and while he's learning about it, we're learning with him. And, the confrontation at the end between Luke and Vader. Now, I had already had it spoiled for me that Darth Vader was Luke's father, but, still, that whole scene and the weight of it just really brings it home. So, episode 5 is number 3 on my list. Now, moving up to number 2 is episode 6, The Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi is one of those movies that I go back to all the time. Like, anytime that I'm thinking about watching a Star Wars movie, I'm like, oh, I want to watch Return of the Jedi. It's really fun to watch. I just love the beginning of the movie with Jabba and saving Han and Luke on the skiff and, jumping on a Jabba sail barge over the Sarlacc. It's just a great scene. And then, you move on to, he goes back to see Yoda. Yoda passes away. And then, you bring the Emperor into this into the picture. And, of course, there's another Death Star, but, honestly, if anything, that shows that the Empire is completely arrogant. Like, oh, we'll just build a bigger one, and we'll make sure that there's not a self-destruct button. But, instead they just leave a bigger hole that a whole ship can fly through. But whatever. Return of the Jedi is just a fun movie to watch for me, and it's such a great closer for that trilogy. It's actually my wife's favorite Star Wars movie because of the Ewoks. She thinks they're so cute. So, that's one that we can watch together a lot. Alright, but moving up to number 1, I have episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. I remember back in 2005 when this came out, I was so excited to see it. I believe I was in high school at that point, and I was just so stoked to see this movie. We were going to wrap it up. Anakin was going to turn to the dark side. That we were going to have a fight between him and Obi-Wan. The Chancellor Palpatine was going to create the Empire and become the Emperor. The Jedi were going to fall. So much stuff was going to happen in this movie, and I remember just sitting back and watching it. And that opening scene, I just loved it from opening all the way through. They toned down the love story a little bit, and that I liked. But, I still like the fact that they still had the emotional parts in it, where, especially at the end, where Padme sees Anakin for the last time, and basically tells him, this can't happen. And then Anakin just freaks out, and then, the lava fight at the end of the movie. Wow. I remember seeing that in the movie theater and just watching them, just how fast the blades were going, and then finding out later that was actually them doing it. They didn't speed up the tape later. That's absolutely amazing. The muscle memory that they had to have for that. Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor were just fantastic in that movie. I really, really like Hayden Christensen as an actor. I know that a lot of people had problems with him in the prequels, but I don't know, just something about him just worked for me. I don't know if it was the way that he played the character kind of as just almost repressed and quiet. And then, like, he was like a bomb ready to blow up. And then when he blew up, he blew up. So, and then you've got this man who has been, like, really the only, well, not the only father figure he ever knew, but he's somebody who tells him that he can do anything that he puts his mind to. But then you have his real father figure, who really has been more of a father to him in Obi-Wan, who's telling him, you need to be able to control yourself. You need to be able to not release your feelings. It's okay to feel them, but you can't act on them, especially the dangerous ones, like anger, fear, aggression, things like that. I think that if Obi-Wan and Anakin would have just sat down and had a talk and just been like, Anakin been like, hey, Padme and I are married. And Obi-Wan would have been like, okay, here's what I think about that. And just explained, like, you know, Jedi can have these emotions, but you can't form attachment. See, there's a difference between love and attachment. If you feel that the person that you love, if you lose them, like it is the end of you, then yeah, you're going to do things that are pretty bad in order to keep them in your life. And that is truly selfish. And unfortunately, he chooses the selfish path, and it leads him down to the dark side, and the Emperor wins. But obviously, it is the love of his son that eventually brings him back to the good side. But episode 3 just hit all the check marks for me when I was in the theater. Absolutely loved it. So there's my ranking. Just going back over it again, I'll start from the top to the bottom. I've got episode 3 at 1. Then we go 6, 5, 4, 9, 7, 8, Rogue One, Solo, 2, 1. Moving on to the next topic that I wanted to talk about. So, I don't know how many of you actually have this book, but Ken Napzok, formerly from Collider, who was on Collider Jedi Council and has his Force Center podcast, released a book last year called Why We Love Star Wars. And it was 100 essays about all the moments of Star Wars that we love and the reasons why we love them. And, you know, it just got me thinking that there's been so much Star Wars that's come out since that book. So I thought, what are my top 5 moments that have happened since Ken's book came out last year? So, starting, and these are in no particular order, but I will just start with one and work my way through them. But the first one that I have written down is Ben Solo versus the Knights of Ren from Rise of Skywalker. That scene, to me, I would have wanted a whole movie just Ben Solo. Adam Driver switching from the persona of Kylo Ren into Ben Solo, and just watching Ben Solo as a Jedi take out these guys was just amazing. Like, that is the one part of the movie that I always have to sit down and make sure that I watch. Like, I kept looking for YouTube clips on it before the digital release even came out, because I loved that scene so much. It was just, the choreography, how he's flipping the saber, and some of the mannerisms that he does that are just so Han Solo, like when he kind of shrugs when he's got the lightsaber. That was so cool. And, it just... Ben Solo. Oh, what could have been? Yeah. Alright, but moving on to the next one, I have The Bad Batch. The Bad Batch, I know that we had the animatics before, but since they've come out in the 7th season of the Clone Wars, they've just been super, super cool. It just reminds me of, like, the A-Team. It's the A-Team of clone troopers. Like, you've got the leader, you've got the sniper, you've got the geeky guy, the tech guy who can do anything that you need him to do, and then you've got the brute, the grunt, the guy who does all the heavy lifting. I just thought that was so cool how they had these completely different characters, but yet they were still clones. I love how they explained it, where they were like, they have desirable mutations. So that was really cool. That 4-episode arc where they fought with Anakin and Rex was really, really awesome. And that actually my next point is in that arc. And it's when Anakin kills Admiral Trench. I absolutely loved it when he comes in that door on Trench's ship, and Trench is like, "Oh, you can't kill me. You're a Jedi." And Anakin's like, "I don't have such weaknesses." I was like, "Oh yeah, this is what I wanted to see." And then of course, Trench pushes him. He's like, "Okay, well, I'm going to electrocute you." And Anakin's like, "Nope, not playing that. Ugh, Dad." So, just seeing Anakin taking that step. I know that a lot of people say, like, oh, well, it's the dark side. And I'm thinking, like, well, is it really? Like, he just took out one of the most dangerous generals on the side of the Separatists. And, like, I mean, to put it in perspective, everybody kept saying that, killing General Grievous and killing Count Dooku throughout the war would end the war. So, I mean, he kills Admiral Trench and he's going to the dark side. Well, he's already going to the dark side. But I harken back to Legends, and I quote Kyle Katarn when he talks about, Jedi powers, and it's not necessarily that any power is evil, it's the manner in which you use it. Now, I would argue that Anakin is killing Trench because he's trying to protect people. So, I mean, I know that a lot of it is, oh, the Jedi don't kill, the Jedi don't, but Anakin did what he had to do to protect people. And, maybe I'm a little off base in that thinking, but I don't know. But anyway, moving on to the next one, I'm moving into The Mandalorian now. I have Mando versus the TIE Fighter. That scene, when he had the jetpack and I saw the TIE Fighter coming towards him, and I was like, oh, what's going to happen here? And then when he shot a tow cable on it after he literally flew over top of it, like, I was like, oh yeah, this is a way to end the season here. So you literally had one guy dueling a TIE Fighter. Now, granted, we've seen that before. We saw it in Star Wars Rebels Season 4, where, Bo-Katan basically says a Mandalorian with a jetpack is a weapon. So, Mando goes out and proves it. He's got his jetpack. He takes down a TIE Fighter all by himself. Freaking awesome. Alright, then moving into the last of my top 5. I don't think that this will come as any shock, but Baby Yoda. I was sitting there watching the first episode of The Mandalorian and absolutely loving it. I was like, oh, a Western set in space. Like, it totally did feel like a Western. Especially that first episode being on the sand, the desert world, and you're riding the blurgs across the terrain, like cowboys riding horses, and the gun shootout before they got into the room. But when they're looking around and they pull the sheet off of the carriage, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, it's gonna be a baby. Well, that's weird. And then when I saw the ears, I was literally like, no, there's no way. And of course, he pulls the blanket down and it's literally just a little baby Yoda. And, it's not really Baby Yoda, it's the child, but it was just so cool to see that. Like, I was like, wow, you guys took a huge leap. Like, nobody expected just to see a tiny version of Yoda on the screen. And, the child, just throughout the entire season, the things that he would do, like the different interactions he would have with Mando. I just fell in love with him, and he was one of my favorite Star Wars moments from the past year. So there you have it, my top Star Wars moments, and I would love to know what your guys' moments from the last year have been. So that could include The Mandalorian, that could include Clone Wars, the new season that came out, it could include Episode 9, just any Star Wars stuff that's come out in the last year since Ken's book. I'd love to know what you guys have, thought that your top moments were of Star Wars. But that's going to wrap it up for this podcast. I'm going to try to have one of these out at least every week. Maybe more if I feel like I want to talk about something, but at least once a week. Thank you guys for taking the time to listen. And I would one of the things that I want to do on here is in the comments section, I would love for you guys to put down ideas of stuff to talk about. I would love topics that we can just kind of dig into. You guys can get my opinions, and then I can get your opinions in the comments. Yeah, I would just absolutely love to do that. So please, in the comments, put down some stuff that you would like to talk about, and we will go from there. All right? So that's going to be it. So until next time, may the Force be with you.